The whole Bloodline Cody Rhodes story is still building since that amazing press conference the other night, and Triple H has now become a major part of how this story will roll on. It's really not something I had on my bingo card that the leader of creative would be a major factor in the story. And with Triple H addressing what happened at the press conference on SmackDown and a few other pointers throughout the night, what WWE is cooking looks like a Michelin star meal. No doubt Gordon Ramsay will slam it though. What's up friends, welcome back to the main event. We are here to talk about Friday Night Smackdown emanating from Charlotte, North Carolina. But before we begin, I have seen that many of you are watching without subscribing to this very channel, which makes me very sad. So go and hit that button and come and join us for some good wrestling fun. We begin with Triple H coming to the ring to address that madness that was the WrestleMania 40 kickoff. He's joined in the ring by Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis and gets straight to it. Hunter says how the road to WrestleMania is on fire now. I know a man who has a habit of setting things on fire. Hunter then begins to take jabs at The Rock by saying there is some confusion in the air, maybe some people don't know their role. That's the thing The Rock says. Like I said before, I think it's really interesting that the guy who is leading creative is now kind of at war with the guy who's basically running the company. It really adds to this whole story arc. Especially 24 years after they were battling each other countless times, these two are genuinely going to fight forever. Hunter then confirms to the crowd that it will be Cody Rhodes against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I just hope they don't really screw us here. He finishes his speech by saying it doesn't matter if you don't like that decision. Another thing that The Rock says, and it really makes me sad that Triple H can't actually wrestle in the ring anymore because of his heart problem. These two would have somewhat of a not so much banger at WrestleMania, but I'd love to see it. Nick Aldis then takes over by announcing that Seth Rollins' opponent for WrestleMania will be determined in an Elimination Chamber match at the PLE in Perth. Adam Pearce then announces that the 12 men who will take part in the qualifying matches for the Chamber are Randy Orton, Bronson Reed, Kevin Owens, Logan Paul, AJ Styles, The Miz, Bobby Lashley, Ivar, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn, Dominic Mysterio, and LA Knight. It then got me thinking of all the different combinations of men we could have in that chamber and how pretty much any of them would be a banger match in the long run. We then see the first of these qualifying matches as Drew McIntyre comes out and he starts talking about CM Punk. I really appreciate how Drew is trying to keep a young talent like CM Punk relevant whilst he's injured. He then gives himself a new nickname, DM Hunk. Yep. His opponent then comes out and it's none other than the phenomenal one, AJ Styles. But before the match begins, we find out the main event of the show will be Randy Orton against Sami Zayn. Much excitement. Before the bell goes though, LA Knight comes out to commentary. I'm guessing on the build up to the chamber we're going to see LA Knight continue his rivalry with AJ Styles, which it's fine. The match begins and we see some nice back and forth action, but the thing that bothered me quite a bit was how LA Knight and Wade Barrett just couldn't stop talking throughout the first few minutes. Corey Graves, bless him, was trying really hard to call the match but just kept getting overshadowed by these two loudmouths, and the worst part about it was the line that LA Knight said. Is Seth Rollins' middle name actually Freakin'? I love LA Knight and Wade Barrett, but come on! As the match continued, we got to see how much Styles has improved his body since he was away after he hit a huge powerbomb on Drew. Definitely been on them vitamins, brother. After a Future Shock DDT, Drew looked like he'd taken a blow to his leg, which AJ Styles instantly put a target on. The fight headed outside and AJ landed right next to LA Knight, who tips water over AJ. That rivalry is definitely growing. Back in the ring, AJ manages to get a pin on Drew, but LA Knight gets on the apron distracting the referee. Drew hits a claymore. The match is done. Drew qualifies for the chamber. Good fun match. It was kind of predictable Drew would win, but it's quite nice to see that AJ Styles and LA Knight are continuing something. Kayla is backstage with Sami Zayn, who says he doesn't have time to get emotional and has never beaten Drew McIntyre. Originally when the Chamber qualifiers were shown, I thought, oh, Drew's going to win this and go to WrestleMania and fight Seth. But the fact that they're keeping Sami banging on about Drew makes me think that that is the match for WrestleMania and Sami will get the win. We then see Ryan Blaney coming to the arena for a VIP experience. I don't know who that is. Then one of my favourite segments of the night as we see Pretty Deadly on a beautiful sunlit pier and they say that they can see Queen Elizabeth in the sky. We then see Queen Elizabeth in the sky. Kit shows his hand which has been completely wrecked by Pete Dunne. I'm sorry, Pete Dunne! They curse Pete Dunne and say they will show the world who the real Pretty Deadly is. Great crack, great fun, Pretty Deadly are awesome. Bianca Belair then takes on Michin in another qualifier for the Women's Elimination Chamber match. It was an alright match that really showed off Michin as she dominated most of the fight. In the end, Bianca rises up and hits a KOD and wins, joining Becky Lynch as the first two members of the Chamber. Becky's still going to win though, let's be honest. We then see Bron Breakker backstage with Triple H where Hunter sings Bron's praise and offers advice about where he should sign, until Paul Heyman interrupts and is happy to see Bron. I actually forgot that they worked together in NXT once. Hunter wants to know what Paul wants, but Heyman decides to leave, but he warns that next week he'll be back with Roman and The Rock. Going to be another must-see episode of SmackDown next week. Bayley then comes out to a huge ovation and begins to talk about how much Damage Control meant everything to her, but Io is going to learn the hard way not to laugh at her. Out comes Dakota Kai wanting to know why Bayley is ghosting her. She says she was put in a really tough spot in Damage Control because she respects Bayley but also respects Io. Dakota then mentions that Kairi and Asuka got into Io's head when they joined, and then the three women come out. They surround the ring and Dakota leaves to get a chair, which then we are teased that Dakota will hit Bayley, but she actually runs off Io, Asuka and Kairi. Sure, it's putting someone in Bayley's corner for the moment, but we all know Dakota Kai is a crazy lady and will more than likely turn on Bayley before the whole story is done. We see Kayla backstage with Orton, who says he will qualify for the chamber and the one constant in there will be the RKO. Yep, cool. Then it was time for the finals of the little #1 contender tag team tournament they have been doing to see who will face the Judgment Day at Elimination Chamber for the belts. We see Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate enter, but before DIY can come out, we're treated to a little promo from Bobby Lashley, the Street Profits and B-Fab. We also see some awful clip art pasting. I can do better and I'm piss poor at editing. Hire me WWE, I'll do it for free. They talk about the final testament before we find out Bobby will be facing Bronson Reed in a qualifier on Monday. Back to the ring, we then see DIY enter. The match begins and Tyler Bate and Johnny Gargano just throw down, not being able to get the upper hand on each other. Tyler hits a wild spot where he hits an airplane spin on Gargano whilst hitting a swing on Ciampa. Claudio needs to do something better than that. Ciampa then hits the Project Ciampa on Bate for a 2 count, then DIY line up the meat in the middle, but Pete Dunne manages to stop it. Pete follows up by hitting a bitter end on Johnny Gargano for the 1-2-3, and the young British team head to Elimination Chamber. This was how I saw the match was going to go because we've already had DIY versus Judgment Day, but I do feel like the match kind of lacked a bit because most of the time it was in an ad break. Give these boys more time to cook, please. Dom is backstage with Byron and speaks about how he doesn't care who he faces in Elimination Chamber or the qualifiers. We then find out he'll be facing Kevin Owens. R-Truth then shows up and calls Kevin Owens the Miz. It's always great to see Truth. It was a kind of a promo. Logan Paul is then shown going to see Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce. He complains to Nick that he asked for an opponent for his title, not a qualifying match because they are for unqualified people. Logan then finds out his opponent will be The Miz. I'm certain Logan's going to win this. They're not going to have the champ lose here, but it would not shock me to see The Miz go over here. Then they announce the next bunch of qualifiers. On Raw, we will see Bronson Reed against Lashley and LA Knight taking on Ivar. Friday will be Logan Paul versus The Miz and Dominic against Kevin Owens. Shotzi will also be taking on Tiffany Stratton and Naomi will be going up against Zelina Vega. All of these matches seem very fun, and some of them do seem very unpredictable. It was then time for the main event as Sami Zayn takes on Randy Orton. This was certainly an interesting match. Orton seemed quite wiped out throughout the whole thing and Sami was just running circles around him. We then see Sami dump Orton on the commentary table. It didn't break. Randy couldn't seem to get back into fluid action from this point. Hopefully he was just selling and hasn't niggled his back. However, there was an awesome superplex from Orton to Sami that had me pop. Orton then gives a receipt to Sami by dumping him on the commentary table. It didn't break. Sami avoided an RKO with a roll-up, Orton kicked out of a Blue Thunder Bomb pin, then Sami hits a springboard over Orton but gets hit with an RKO and Randy gets the win. He joins Drew McIntyre as the first members of the Elimination Chamber match. Before we go off air though, we see DM Hunk waiting in the ring and we fade to black with a face-off between Drew and Randy. All in all, this was a pretty decent SmackDown with some pretty decent matches. But it's nice to see some paths being made for people heading into WrestleMania, and Seth Rollins will finally have a confirmed opponent in a few weeks. About flipping time, right? The one big takeaway though is that SmackDown next week will be one to watch with the appearance of Roman Reigns and The Rock. This story just keeps getting better. But that is SmackDown. What did you think? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. Hit a like on the video and please subscribe. I really want some more friends. But I've been Toby, this has been the main event, and I'll see you soon.